Hello everyone, and thank you for watching today. This video is from the Come Follow Me, Old Testament class of the Continuing Learning Program of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Today we will be studying Lesson 24, from 1 Samuel chapter 17 to 2 Samuel 7. Let's get started. The structure of the Old Testament. The Old Testament is divided into four parts. 1. Genesis through Deuteronomy are books of the law. 2. The books of Joshua through Esther are book of the history. 3. From the book of Job to the Song of Solomon, it is a book of the poetry. 4. From Isaiah to Malachi, these are books of the prophecy. The book of Samuel is the fourth book of history. The book of the history record the history of Israel in chronological order for more than 600 years after Moses' death. Now let's look at the book of the history. The structure of book of the history. Book of the history are also divided into four parts. The book of Samuel is included in the second part. The books of Judges through Chronicles describe the Israelites' experiences from their settlement in the Promised Land until their conquest by Assyria and Babylon. Now, let's take a look at an overview of the book of 1 Samuel. Summary of 1 Samuel. I explained the gist of 1 Samuel in the last lesson, so I will omit it this time. Today we will be studying chapters 17 through 31. Now let's look at an overview of the book of 2 Samuel. Summary of 2 Samuel. After Saul's death, David became king of Israel, and the country prospered. But the story depicts its eventual downfall due to David's arrogance. The original author is unknown, but it is believed to have been written by Samuel, Nathan, and Gad. Now let's look at an overview of each chapter. From chapter 1 to 4. After Saul's death. David's exploits. Saul and Jonathan die. The end of the house of Saul. David becomes king of Judah. From chapter 5 to 10. The establishment of the kingdom of David. David became king over all Israel and made Jerusalem his capital. While transporting the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, Uzzah touches the Ark and dies. David triumphed over neighboring countries, and his kingdom reached its greatest size. From chapter 11 to 20. David's sin, family tragedy, the instability of the kingdom. David commits adultery with Bathsheba. Nathan rebukes David for his sin, and David repents, but their child dies. David's son Amnon committed adultery with his half-sister Tamar. Tamar's brother Absalom kills Amnon. Absalom rebels against his father David and fights. David's army killed Absalom, and David grieved. From chapter 21 to 24. Summary of the Kingdom of David. The Gibeon Massacre. Saul killed the Gibeonites with whom he had made a peace treaty, resulting in a famine. The Song of David, the last words. Census. Today we will be studying chapters 1 through 7. Now let's look at each chapter. 1 Samuel chapters 17 to 18. David fights Goliath. As Saul and Israel stood before the Philistine camp, a giant man named Goliath, about 3 meters tall and fully armored, came out of the Philistine camp to challenge them. David was tending sheep for his father, but he came to the Israelite camp to deliver something to his brothers who were in battle. When the Israelite soldiers saw Goliath, no one fought, so David told Saul that he would fight in God's name. Saul offered David armor, but David, unfamiliar with it, went into battle without it, armed only with a slingshot and 5 stones. David said, "Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied." David threw a stone from his slingshot, hitting Goliath in the forehead, and Goliath fell. Israel praised David, saying, "Saul killed 1,000, but David killed 10,000. Saul was furious. What do you all learn from this story? Now let's move on to the next topic. 1 Samuel chapters 19 to 22. David's flight. Let's follow David's escape in chronological order. King Saul, jealous of David, plots to assassinate him in the court of Gibeah. And so begins David's escape. Saul ordered David to be killed. Michal, David's wife, helps him escape. Michal disguised the statue by placing it on the bed. David flees to Samuel. When Jonathan learned that his father Saul was trying to kill David, he shot an arrow to signal David to flee. Jonathan and David were sad to part ways for the last time. David flees to Nob. David receives a sword from Ahimelech. Saul was furious and vowed to kill everyone who helped David. David flees to Gath, a Philistine town. Since this area is outside Israelite territory, Saul cannot pursue him. After that, he went to Adullam's cave. Saul's defectors gathered around David. David went to Moab and asked the king to protect his parents. David's escape continues. 1 Samuel chapters 23 to 25. David's flight. David goes to the town of Keilah in the territory of Israel. The town of Keilah was under attack by the Philistines. David asked whether he should save Keilah. The priest Abiathar asked God. David, following instructions from God, fought against the Philistines and saved the city of Keilah. When Saul heard that David had fought the Philistines in the town of Keilah, he came looking for him. David hid when he heard that Saul was coming. David flees to wilderness of Ziph. He is betrayed by Saul, but escapes with God's help. David flees to En-Gedi. David had the opportunity to kill Saul in the cave of En-Gedi, but he did not kill him. David went to the town of Mount Carmel. David sent young men to Nabal, a powerful figure in the town of Mon. Nabal sent away the young David who had come to greet him. David was enraged and marched forward. Nabal's wife, Abigail, calmed David's anger. Nabal was struck down by God and died. David's escape continues. 1 Samuel chapters 26 to 31. David's flight. David went back to the wilderness of Ziph. David went to Saul's camp and saw him sleeping, but he did not kill him. David went back to the wilderness of Gath. David went again to Gath, the Philistine town. Saul did not go to search in the Gentile towns. David, who was in a Philistine town, went with the Philistines when they went to war against Israel. The Philistines, along with David, were approaching Israel. Saul, in fear, called up Samuel, who had died. The Philistine kings, except for Achish, believed that David, being an Israelite, might betray them and therefore withdrew him from the war. Achish gave David the city of Ziklag. When David arrived in the town of Ziklag, he found it under attack by the Amalekites, plundered, and taken captive. David pursued them and recovered the people and their belongings. In the battle between the Philistines and the Israelites, the Philistines were victorious, and Saul and Jonathan died. And so, David's escape from Saul came to an end. What did you all learn from this story? Please let me know later. Now, let's move on to the next topic. 2 Samuel chapters 1 to 5. David becomes king. David grieved over the deaths of Saul and Jonathan and fasted until evening. David went to Hebron, the capital of the tribe of Judah, and became king of Judah. Saul's army made Ishbosheth king of Israel. David's army and Saul's army fought, and Ishbosheth was killed due to the betrayal of his men. All the tribes of Israel made David their king. David was 30 years old at the time. David captured the city of Jerusalem and made it the capital of Israel. When David went to battle, he always consulted the Lord. Shall I go and shoot the Philistines? Should I follow this army? Should we go up towards the Philistines? What did you all learn from this story? Please let me know later. Now, let's move on to the next topic. 2 Samuel chapters 6 to 7. The Ark of the Covenant is moved, and David looks out at the temple. As the Ark of the Covenant was being transported to Jerusalem, the oxen pulling the cart carrying the Ark stumbled, and Uzzah, who was walking beside it, held the Ark of the Covenant, which he had not touched, with his hand. Then the Lord struck Uzzah, and he died. Institute Old Testament texts state the following. Even if Uzzah genuinely wanted the Ark of the Covenant not to fall, he should have believed that God's power would prevent that from happening. David lived in a house of cedar, but the Ark of the Covenant was in the tabernacle, so he planned to build a temple, which was the house of God. God answered through the prophet Nathan that he would not permit David to build the temple, because in God's eyes, David was sinful. 2 Chronicles state the following. You must not build a house for my name, for you are a soldier and have shed much blood. What can you learn from these stories? Please take a moment to think about it. Now let's move on to today's discussion. Today's discussion. 1. What can we learn from the story of David, who defeated a heavily armored giant with a slingshot. David's courage, faith, God's power, etc. 2. What can we learn from the story of David fleeing from Saul? Pride and jealousy, friendship with Jonathan, relationships with Gentiles, David's forgiveness, David's reliance on God loving one's enemies, etc. 3. What can we learn from the story of the struggle for kingship within Israel? Why did God choose David, and not Ishbosheth, to be king of his people? 4. What do you think about Uzzah being killed by God after touching the Ark of the Covenant to support it? 5. Do you have any other information, questions, or things you'd like to learn about from 1 Samuel chapters 17 to 2 Samuel chapters 7? 2.1. Please think about these 5 things and discuss them together. Once we've done that, today's lesson will be over. Finally, we will show you the information. Information. The purpose of this video regarding the Old Testament covered in Come Follow Me is to 1. Support personal study. 2. Help teachers prepare lessons for Sunday school, seminary, primary, etc. 3. Support home study, such as for family home evening. If you would like the PowerPoint data, please send an email to the address below. Thank you for watching until the end. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel, rate it well, and leave a good comment. See you next time.